Hey everyone, we're gonna look at some more Zendikar Rising cards here before we kick off a draft today. So I'm gonna hop over to my left monitor and start taking a look at some cards with you, and remind you as we do that my sponsor up there in the upper right corner, cardkingdom.com, are purveyors of the physical magic stuff. So if you are excited about this set, you see stuff here that maybe you want to get onto your tabletop, please check out Card Kingdom via my affiliate link, and you can do some Zendikar Rising pre-orders, whether it's maybe you want to get a booster box and crack your own, do some sealed, and then trade and build with your parts. That'd be awesome. You can also pre-order singles. So if you want this Archon of Emeria for your whatever deck, go snap up 4 of them right now. Pay for them in advance, and then they'll get to you as fast as possibly can be shipped to you once they are allowed to start selling. So that would be sweet. And let's check out and see what's tempting from this set. Archon of Emeria, 2 and a white for a rare creature with flying, 2/3 flyer for 2 and a white. Already a very solid deal. So let's see what. I bet this is all upside though. Looks like it's balanced. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Wowie, that's a hate bear. It's not a bear, but it reminds me of hate bear type text. Hate bears are a slang in Magic for a class of generally 2/2 white creatures for 2 that also has some claws that just really wrecks some kinds of decks. So in this case, what is this bear? What is this non-bear hating? It's hating, well, things like storm, any kind of combo where you're trying to fire off a bunch of spells each turn is going to fail against this. And of course, just slowing down your opponent's decks. Basically, if you know, in a format, in a constructed format where basically all the lands are non-basic, this is effectively slowing down your opponent by a full turn, which in the formats where players are playing nothing but non-basics, that's big game. So super interesting. Doesn't feel like, are we going to play it in limited? Sure. The non-basic lands entering tapped isn't really going to matter, I think, in this format, because as far as I can tell, every non-basic land enters tapped anyway, or all the ones I've seen. I should be clear. Maybe there's there's one rare one or something that you can pay life and it enters untapped, right? So, but for the most part, in limited, the non-basic lands you have are going to enter tapped anyway. And and I guess the rare ones, there's the rare cycle that we saw 6 of 10, and there's 4 coming later. So it might have some, but I think it's mostly at the rare level, right, where those where the lands are entering untapped and are non-basics. And then each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. It's really hard to leverage that in a way that, like, you are fist pumping and your opponent is sad. Like, it's just too symmetrical. Although some decks are just going to struggle more than others. If you face red-blue spells that's looking to fire off a cheap cantrips to activate some prowess, then this card is going to be good against that. But largely, from a card evaluation standpoint, I just see this as a 2/3 flyer for 3, which is great. Which is maybe not great, which is good. It's good. We play 2/2 flyers for 3, so that extra point of toughness can really help it win combat against that kind of class of flyer. But it's not a priority, I don't think. I think it's more like a common, for limited purposes, it feels more like a common with a gold mana symbol, but it's not bad. So that's my thoughts there. Next up, Leyline Tyrant. Leyline Tyrant is 2 red for a 4/4 flying dragon. Awesome already. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. Well, the first thing that leaps out at me is that that's a new way to phrase that. I wasn't like on the rules team ever or anything, but I was always fascinated by the process of updating and revising and massaging and iterating upon Magic templating, trying to communicate what these cards are doing to players better. And so that's an interesting new phrasing about not draining your mana pool, basically. But then there's another line of text. When Leyline Tyrant dies, you may pay any amount of red. When you do, it deals that much damage to any target. Neat. So cool little design here. Had me at 4/4 flyer for 4. I mean, it is mythic, right? So you expect bonkers, and we basically got bonkers because the way that this is going to play, even in a 2-color deck where you are like, say, half of your sources are red, as you play, every turn that goes by, every time you're going to untap for your turn and have unspent red mana, you just get to add it to your pool and build it up. And then that means that if you're either you're just going to win with your 4/4 flyer cracking away in the air, but if your opponent can only deal with it through destruction, through killing your creature, then you get to just build up this steady fireball in installments, which is insane. That's crazy good. Often you are looking to fireball your opponent out, but you have to save up all your mana and do it at once. Of course, this only uses red. It's a fireball that only uses red, but being able to just stockpile your spare mana as you go, even if you, let's say you only add, like, you attack 3 times with this and only ended up with 4 or 5 spare mana over the course of those 2 turns. I mean, you're going to have 2 every turn, right? You had the red to cast the thing. So let's say you attack 3 times and you just spent the rest of the time putting 6 red mana in your pool and it's just sitting there. Well, if they kill it, they're dead. Like now they need to pacify it. Now they need to exile it. Like this is just going to get to the point where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, and you need some kind of non-destroy, non-dies tool to manage it. And that's not even talking about the fact that besides being a death fireball, you can just actually spend that mana. You know, like you can go Leyline Tyrant on 4, untap. And you tap 3 red mana and basically float it, and then untap your next turn. You can have like 8-9 mana to spend on turn 6. So that's no joke either. Basically, all sorts of ways to go. And yes, says I like what. Oh, you can't hold through EOT. Oh, that's why it's different. Thanks, Hat. Appreciate that. Reading is fundamental. As steps and phases end, does that mean? But is not okay? That's a very important question. That's a very important question, Hat, because I read this. I thought of the end of turn as effectively the end of a phase. But if the end of a turn is not also the end of a phase, then you're right, and that's a big question. So maybe I'm going to chat Google that. Somebody go look up the rulings on this and see if there's some details there, because it changes everything. Not everything. It does not change the fact that this is a 4/4 flyer for 4 that you're going to first pick every time you see it. Pack 1, pick 1, like every time. Yeah. Well, that's why I read it that way, Buck. But let's make sure we know what we're talking about here. Right, because that Hat is thinking maybe the odd templating is so that end of turn actually does do that, and I was thinking it was an iteration on the rules text. Your mana pool doesn't empty. Like, I don't know, you could look up Upwelling or any previous card in which Omnath. What does Omnath say? There's a historical precedent for mana not emptying, and I thought this was just a more clear way to say it, but maybe Hat's right. So it looks like the chat is saying that indeed the mana stays through turns. Good call out though, Hat, to make sure we understood that. And I will say, if we happen to be wrong, then adjust my takes as appropriate. But it seems like, yeah, I mean, I think it has to stay through turns, or else this is a terrible line of rules text. Like, Hat, if you're right, this card is a bad design, because it's not doing enough for this, right? At that point, you're saying, well, in response to its death, I can tap out for some red and turn the red into damage. And it's just not sexy enough for a mythic, frankly. So I would be shocked now as I read it through if it turned out that the mana did go away between turns. So yeah, and Buckeye confirming as well. So yeah, let's go back to that then. All that stuff stands. Somebody else called out that it also makes self-sacrifice outlets important, because if you Leyline Tyrant them down to 10, and then they come up with some sort of a 1/6 flyer that's blocking your dragon, and you have a sack outlet, and you've put 10 mana in your pool, you can just sack and win and kind of fireball via sack outlet. So look out for that as well. But obviously, super powerful Windmill Slam, first pick. A plus? That's the only question. Will Luis and Marshall give it an A plus or just an A? I think they'll give it A plus. I mean, what do you need from a card besides being a 4/4 flyer for 4 with then insano game finishing upside? Not to mention insano mid game shenanigans where you're again having 8-9 plus mana in the very middle turns. So nice one. I'm going to do one more card here, and then we're going to draft. And then we'll come back and do some more of these, maybe to finish the day. Zareth San, the Trickster. This is at request of Chimero Gaming. We have a rare here that's 3 blue-black for a 4/4 legendary creature Merfolk Rogue. Just okay stats, so I'm sure it does some awesome stuff. Flash. 2 blue-black, and return an unblocked attacking rogue. It is a rogue you control to its owner's hand. 2. Put this card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So you're doing this from your hand, apparently. Flat. Abilities like that are really weird. When it's like a spell in the rules text, that reads bizarrely to me. I don't know how you all feel about that, but when I read something that is effectively like this right here, this first block of rules text, this is a magic card, you know. Like, wait, anyway, it's kind of odd, but in its how it works. But and then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So, boy, if you hit at the right times, this is going to be something else. This kind of ninjutsu, like, that's what they're going for here. They're trying to get me to say that as an experienced Magic player talking about this. And this is a design trick when you want to introduce some, you know, I don't know where the concept of this card came from, who designed it, and what they were thinking about when they made it. But it's possible that it starts out with an idea of like, well, what if we make a rare that has a saboteur effect? In other words, a damage opponent and something happens effect that reanimates creatures, like damage and reanimate. So let's do that. And then you're like, well, how are we going to do that? Oh, let's use something known. Let's use ninjutsu. So you can take an existing mechanic that experienced players are comfortable and familiar with, reuse it in a new context, and then the experienced players latch onto it right away because they are experienced with that mechanic, and it allows for easy communication. Like, basically, it's rogue ninjutsu, right? If I say, oh, it's rogue ninjutsu to an experienced Magic player, they know what this second block of text does. So, is it any good? Yeah, it's pretty good, even just as a, like, let's take away this block of text that was a little confusing to me and a little weird, because it's basically saying do this thing from hand, do this ninjutsu ability from hand. I think that's maybe what's throwing me, is it just doesn't have a keyword saying, anyway. But basically, even if you don't do this part, just being able at the end of their turn, when they don't realize that you're about to attack with a 4/4, you flash this in and attack with a 4/4. You may just be cracking him in the face for 4 with none of the shenanigans. You're just doing it, right? So I think it's pretty good. One of the things, though, is your opponent's graveyard needs to have something in it, and that's not like there's nothing here that's filling your opponent's graveyard. So one thing I would look out for if you first picked a Zareth San and we're trying to build around it in limited is to get some Oppo Mill cards. Make sure you've got good removal. Like, basically, you want to get some sweet stuff with this, but often by the time you are, if you're casting this on curve and you're like popping this out on 5 and cracking with it on 6, they might not have anything in their graveyard worth stealing at that point. So if there's cheaper incidental opponent mill, that's something to look out for if you have Zareth, because anything you can do to mill your opponent ahead of Zareth is going to increase your chances to get something game breaking with it. Yeah, anything that dies in combat, Evan. But I'm saying, to really break this, to really feel like I did it, I busted this card. You're going to be wanting to cast this on 5, and then and then hit them. And so that's true. Yeah. If something else in that combat dies, sure. I'm just saying. It sounds like people are saying Rogue does have some mill stuff, which makes sense. This is classic R&D. They're good game designers, it turns out, and they make payoffs that have enablers. And so this is this payoff for milling your opponents. It surprises me not to hear that the set is full of Rogue enablers for this. Exactly. Hat says the dream is that you get something too expensive to have been cast yet. In order to have the chance of pulling that off, you need to be milling them. Yeah, that would be ideal, right, Buckeye? That simply the act of attacking with a rogue mills your opponent, and then they don't block, and then you bring in the trickster. So looks like a fun early pick, build around rare. Good stuff. Has a clear directive on it and a lot of built-in synergies. So a lot of words on it, but once you process them, I think people get what this is, especially when you get to use phrases like, it's Rogue Ninjutsu.